Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Sidetrack here, bringing you another Minecraft tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at Power Crystal's mod, Minefactory Reloaded. You can see some of the blocks behind me. Now, specifically, we're going to be looking at blocks that have to do with farming and agriculture. So you're probably thinking to yourself, but Sidetrack, I already have a farm, and it's so cool that I can, click my little lever and everything will get automatically harvested and pushed down. And I've even planned so well that I can just come right here and stand, and everything gets deposited directly into my inventory. Then all I have to do is come back and replant everything. And, sometimes I might make a little mistake and jump on the ground a little too hard, but, it's a pretty good system. So you're telling me, Sidetrack, that Minefactory Reloaded has something better to offer? And yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. So with Minefactory Reloaded and several of these blocks you see around me, you can make a fully automated farm that will harvest, will plant, and do all of the stuff that you just did over there completely on its own. So what do you need to get yourself started? Well, the first thing you're going to want to do is run around your world until you find some rubber trees. These rubber trees have a slightly lighter than normal bark texture, they've got bright green leaves, and they kind of stick out like a sore thumb. You're going to want to take your axe to these rubber trees and cut them down. So you are cutting them down to try and get rubber, and rubber is a fairly good drop. It has a fairly high drop rate. You're going to collect it. You'll also probably want to collect any of the rubber saplings, take them back to your base and plant them nearby so that you'll have a nice supply of rubber. Now you're going to take your rubber, and there are a couple things you can use with it. Specifically, you can make sticky pistons, which is a lot easier than hunting down slimes and getting their little green goo. But mostly what you're going to do with this rubber is you're going to put it in your furnace, and you're going to cook it into rubber bars. Now you can use these rubber bars to make some things, most notably the conveyor belts over here, but a lot of these you're going to cook again into plastic sheets, or raw plastic. So your raw plastic you can use and put in a 2x2 or a 4 squared grid, and you're going to get 4 plastic sheets. Now these plastic sheets you can use for a variety of things, but probably one of the first blocks or first items you're going to want to make is this precision sledgehammer. Now this precision sledgehammer works a lot like a wrench if you're familiar with other mods, specifically BuildCraft, in that it lets you rotate blocks. So if I come over here and right click on this block, it will rotate around until it comes back forward. I suppose I can't do that one, but you can see rotates around. Pretty cool. Now some of the other interesting blocks that are easy to make with this rubber bars, you can use 3 of these to make 16 conveyor belts. Now your conveyor belts you're going to use to transport items, and I'm going to show you these in a little bit. They work a lot like BuildCraft pipes if you're familiar with those, but these will also transport any entity. So if you fall on your conveyor belt, it will move you from point A to point B. You can have it pick up cows and send them where you want them to go. Heck, you could even use them to send zombies around, or creepers, who knows? The possibilities are endless. And then the last thing that I'm going to show you the recipe for is an item router. Now the item router takes items from your conveyor belts and will tell things where to go. So it's really a sorter. It works a lot like a diamond pipe. Again, if you're familiar with BuildCraft, it just tells different things where to go. You're going to use 4 plastic sheets, 3 redstone repeaters, a chest, and now my recipe says a machine frame, but if you it's telling me a machine frame because I have thermal expansion installed, and it does change the recipe somewhat. But if you just have Minefactory Reloaded, it will tell you you need a factory machine frame, which has a slightly different recipe. Now, this is the extent of the blocks that I'm going to show you how to make. Most of the rest of these blocks have slightly different recipes depending on what other mods you have installed. And so it seems kind of pointless for me to tell you all of them if you might have different recipes on your game. Alright, so those are your basic blocks, and these are the things that we're going to be talking about today. So these things that I showed you, and then these couple of blocks in front of me. So we need to have an automated farm. Your smallest automated farm is just going to be a simple 3x3 square. Now, how do you get this set up? Well, there are a couple of blocks that you need. Most importantly, and probably the one thing that you will absolutely need if you want to have an automated farm, is this planter. You can see the planter right in front of me. Here is the user interface. It has a great big inventory that you're going to fill with seeds or saplings or netherwort, whatever you want it to grow, put it in here. It's got a colorful grid that we'll be talking about a little bit later. Just take note that there are colors in the grid and there are colors on the top of your planter. They're the same colors, it's not a coincidence. The next thing I want to show you is that there are 3 bars. One is energy, that is how much energy is stored. It accepts a variety of different energy types, as you can see there. Work says how long until it does what you want it to do. The planter works very quickly. It only requires 1 work per seed. So, as you will see in a moment, it will plant insanely fast. And then the last one is idle. You can pretty much ignore that, but essentially what it says is if you apply a redstone signal, your idle bar will fill up with blue and it will stay there, and it won't actually do anything. But you can pretty safely ignore this until you become a little more experienced with the mod. There is an upgrade slot here. We'll be talking about that in a little bit. Alright, so let's see our planter. How do we plant, or how do we place this? Well, your planter is going to go, remember I have a 3x3. Your planter goes, directly beneath the plot of land that you want it to be planting. So you can see there's a 3x3 here, and my planter is directly under there. Now, of course, I went ahead and broke that, and I suppose I need some more dirt there. There we go. Alright, so the 3x3, oh look, it already planted again for me. That is the basics of the planter. The next thing you want to make is a harvester. Now the harvester I have sitting over here. You can see its blades going back and forth. Your harvester has mostly the same options. It's got these 3 energy bars, it's got an upgrade block, but then it has a couple differences. So you have several options. You can tell your harvester to shear tree leaves, and if you shear the leaves, you will get leaf blocks, and you will not get saplings. Very important to realize that if you shear the leaves, you do not get saplings, so you'll have trouble replanting your trees after a long time of shearing the leaves. You can have it harvest small mushrooms or let them to grow larger. You can have it harvest jungle wood or leave jungle wood. And I'll show you, why you might want to do some of these things in a minute. You will also have this liquid tank, and it will fill up with sludge unless you pump the sludge away. Now you can pretty much ignore sludge if all you want to do is grow plants, but the sludge can be used with another Minefactory Reloaded block called the sludge boiler, and it will make base blocks like dirt or clay or sand. Oh, there goes the harvester. So let's take a look at one extra block, and this is an additional block. This block is the fertilizer. Now the fertilizer, you put industrial fertilizer in there. One way you can make industrial fertilizer is to take 4 wheat, 2 bone meal, 2 strings, and a stick in the middle. You'll get 16 industrial fertilizer. Personally, I never waste my time to do this, as you will see in just a moment. You think 16 fertilizer is a lot until you turn on your fertilizer and watch it burn through the fertilizer insanely fast. But your fertilizer will work just like applying bone meal to a block or to a plant, in that it will get it to grow very quickly. So your fertilizer is an optional block. If you want to have a very quickly growing farm in a small plot of land, the fertilizer is great. There are other options, however, that I'll talk about later if you want to grow more stuff. So let's take a look at this harvester. What's it doing? Well, you can see that every time it cuts down some wheat, it throws it out the back. Now it's throwing it out the back, and I have a conveyor belt out the back. And so it falls on the conveyor belt, and goes along its merry way. Now, I should note that it works perfectly well with Minefactory Reloaded, or obviously it works perfectly well with Minefactory Reloaded, but it works perfectly well with BuildCraft pipes. It works perfectly well with applied energistics, import-export buses, well, import buses. And it works quite well. You can see all of this wheat that comes down here. But I should note that only after a couple minutes I have already burned through almost half of my industrial fertilizer, but I have a whole lot of wheat to show for it. Now, what else do we see here? You can see the conveyor belts in action, and the next thing that I want to show you is the item router. Now, the item router is sitting, well, I'll show you this one because it's a little easier to see. You have many different colors around the item router. You can see each color is going to correspond to one side. Now, in your item router, you have several different colors, and you can tell different things to go through your item router. You can see that I have crescent hammers in all colors but yellow, because I know there is never going to be a crescent hammer that comes down this conveyor belt unless I make a giant mistake. And I don't want anything to go out black, blue, green, or red. I only want things to go out yellow, and yellow happens to be going into the chest. So I can look at all of my wheat. Wow, that's a lot. That did not all get harvested right now. It's kind of been going while I've been playing with this tutorial. And I should also note that black is out the bottom. You'll see there is no white color, even though white is on the top, and that is because the top side of your item router is for input only. It's good to know that for planning purposes. Now, your planter, you will see, I have an entirely full planter. So if we were to look very carefully right at the edge of that item router, you can see a bunch of seeds just hanging out there. Now they're hanging out there because they keep trying to go into the green side. But since green is full, they won't go anywhere. If I go ahead and pull out a couple seeds, you can see they get sucked in and stuck right in here. And if we come back over here, you will find, look, no more seeds waiting to go through. Now, if I were to put this in my world, I probably would not set this up this way, because if you leave this running for several hours, you are going to have a whole lot of seeds stockpiling at the edge of your conveyor belt, and that might cause lag, or worse, it might crash your server. I have never experimented with that. I'm purely hypothesizing, but it's probably what would happen. Alright, so what else do we have here? This is the basics of your farm, and this farm will continue to run indefinitely. This will slowly grow even if I don't have the fertilizer running, which it's not right now. And as soon as it reaches maturity, it will get harvested by the harvester, sucked out, sent around, the seeds will try and go back into the planter, and the wheat will come into the chest. So a great way to completely automate your farm. Now I should note, as is pretty obvious by the energy bar, all of these things require small amounts of energy. To harvest a single piece of wheat, it doesn't require much, but leaving the fertilizer running, and the planter running, and the harvester running, it does burn through some power. Not a lot, but it's worth noting. Alright, so that's the basics. If you want a basic farm with just Minefactory Reloaded, there you go. If you want something a little larger, a little more extravagant, or maybe you would like to incorporate other mods with it, stay tuned. That's what's next. So, next we're going to take a look at expanding this plot. So you can see off in the distance, I have a huge plot of land that has different farmed things on it. There are a couple of blank spots that I'll talk about, but this is all one farm. It all has one planter right in the middle of it. You can kind of see the space left in the carrots there as I have an empty block. So how do you go from this dinky little thing to that giant mammoth of a farm? Well, I'm going to introduce you to the upgrade slot. So in your planter you have this little spot that's an upgrade. Without anything in it, it will do a 3x3 plot of land, and that works perfectly well if you have a very small farm in mind. But if you want larger, you're going to have to make upgrades. Now your upgrades come in all kinds of different varieties, anywhere from lapis up to emerald, but they are all made the same way. You're going to put 3 of whatever your upgrade, your intended upgrade is in the top. You're going to have 3 raw plastic, 2 redstone, and a gold nugget. So I'm going to show you the lapis and the iron upgrade. So if you hover over this, you will see that the lapis upgrade says it increases radius by 1. So the radius, you will remember, is the distance from the center to the edge. So you can see base is 1. If I throw a lapis upgrade in, it expands the radius by 1 block. Now you will note that it actually doubles the size of the farm. So instead of being 3 by 3, it's 5 by 5. So I guess that's not quite doubled, but you know what I mean. So then I take out the lapis upgrade and I put in the iron upgrade, and oh look, it is now a 7 by 7 farm. Pretty cool. Now it's important to note that the larger the farm, the longer it takes the planter to plant things. It will plant each individual block just as fast, but it just has more blocks with which to plant. Now the planter slows down when it's searching a block that already has something in it. So if I take away just 1, it will take quite a while for that to get replanted. So there you go. That's important to remember when you are pairing this up with the harvester. So your harvester, you're going to put anywhere in the middle. So you can put it there, you can put it here, you can put it over on this side, or you could put it where I have this chest, but I'll let you imagine that. You want your harvester to face with the blades in the middle. And if you wanted these harvesters, and you'd really only need 1, even though I'm showing you 3, you would need to make sure that you have the same upgrade in the harvester that you have in your planter. So we would need an iron upgrade, I think that's what we used, in this little slot, and that would expand the size of the harvester to a 7 by 7 plot of land, just like the planter. So you only need 1 planter, 1 harvester, as long as they have the same upgrades in them. Alright, so let's take a look over here. We have our truly massive plot of land, and you will see that I have different things planted in each of the sectors. So how do I go about doing that? Well, some of you are already guessing because I alluded to it earlier. You have different colors on the top of your planter, and each of these colors correspond to a location. So we have red, yellow, green. We have netherwort is red. This empty spot is green or yellow, and then we have the wheat is green. And so inside my planter, you can see in the red slot I have netherwort, the yellow slot I have sugar canes, notice they did not grow, and in the green slot I have seeds. So you will see that I have a bunch of different things in here, and most of them grew, but not all of them. So you can see that netherwort grows perfectly fine. I should note you have to plant it on soul sand, just like you normally would. Sugar cane does not grow, even though it has all this water next to it. Wheat grows fine, as you saw over there. Cactus will not plant itself. Carrots and potatoes work great. Any of the trees will work perfectly well, although I should note that oak is incredibly efficient. It uses all of the space. Most of the other trees will leave spaces in between each tree as they grow and take up space. You can plant cocoa beans against jungle wood. So this is a great way to grow cocoa beans. Now, you kind of want to have yourself a fairly spread out set of jungle wood. This is, I believe, probably one of the most efficient ways to do it, although you can see that not all of these have 4 cocoa beans around them. You know, that has an empty space, but this was a fairly quick and easy way I came up with doing it. You can argue that there's a better way. So if you wanted to do sugarcane and cactus, you might think that, oh, there's no way that I can do this. However, you'd be wrong. So we're going to come over here and leave our giant farm behind, and you're going to take a look at this other farm. Now, you'll note that I did not have a harvester attached to this farm. I just was showing you the size of the farm. And in this farm, I have no planter. Now, I have no planter by design because your planter will not plant sugarcane. It will not plant cactus. And you don't want your planter to plant pumpkins or watermelons because it will plant them all right next to each other and there will be no room for your pumpkins or watermelons to grow. So this farm I planted all by myself. I planted a row of 2 rows of pumpkins, 2 rows of watermelon. I put the bases of the reeds down and the bases of the cactus down, and then I just waited for everything to grow. Now, your harvester, because that's what I have sitting over here, will harvest all of these things, and it's smart enough to harvest them in the correct manner. Meaning, if we go ahead and turn this on, it will harvest the tops of your cactus. And it will, you'll see later, it will harvest just the pumpkins. It will harvest just the watermelon in a moment once it finishes with these 3 rows that it's not going to harvest anything on. And it will harvest the tops of your sugarcane. It will leave the bottom row of cactus, it will leave the bottom row of sugarcane, and it will leave the stems of your pumpkins and watermelons. Now you will see that at the ends, I have some pumpkins that are not getting harvested, and I have some watermelons at both sides. Now, the only reason those are not getting harvested is because I have a bronze upgrade that increases the radius by 5, and they are 1 block outside of the radius. So really, I probably got to put a 6 radius in there, but I'm too lazy to do so. So you can see it's come through, it's harvested, it's left the bottoms of this, still has to get those 2. And it will leave the bottoms of these. You can just take my word for it. So again, if you don't want to deal with sludge, like I'm not here, you can leave it, and it won't slow down your harvester. It won't cost any more energy. You don't need to worry about it if you don't want to. Uses a bit of energy, does a bit of work, and it's sitting here idle as it tries to sort through what it needs to harvest. So pretty cool. If I flick the switch, apply a redstone signal, the idle time will just sit there and says it's not actually doing anything. Useful to know. Alright, so we've talked about basics of planters. We've talked about how you can increase the size of your planter. We've talked about another use of the harvester without any planter. We've talked briefly about the fertilizer. And now I want to talk about how you can pair this mod with a mod like BuildCraft to make a probably more efficient way to harvest and grow crops. So if you're not familiar with BuildCraft, BuildCraft adds a pipe. And the pipe works a lot like the conveyor belt in that items will go through it. Now, pipes, there are several different types. And the way I have this set up is that items come down straight out of my harvester. You don't have to put them out the back. I'm putting it out the side. It will come through the pipe into an item router. Now in my item router I say wheat is going to go out black, which is the bottom. And I say seeds are going to go out red, which you can see right here. And then I don't want anything to go out blue, green, or yellow, so I just stuck some redstone energy conduit. If you don't know what that is, it's okay. It's just a filler block. You could put a dirt block in there because your harvester is not going to harvest dirt. So I've got seeds that come down this way. This purple pipe is called an insertion transport pipe. The way the insertion pipe works is it makes sure that it inserts items into this inventory before allowing them to pass. So, because this is empty, seeds will continue to be put into the planter until this planter is 100% full. And then, unlike my setup over yonder, once the planter is full, your seeds will continue along the pipe and head down this way and out and into my chest. Now you could send them wherever you wanted to. I just wanted them to go to a chest. Now you will see that I have these little kind of light gray pipes. These are iron transport pipes, and these tell items to go in a specific direction. I have this one over here so I can connect my cobblestone pipe to my insertion transport pipe. You will see that they don't want to connect down here. and that's just a thing with BuildCraft. Cobblestone pipes do not connect to insertion pipes. So an iron pipe is my go-between. And then down here I have an iron pipe because I only want my wheat to go in this direction, not back here and towards the planter. Alright, so the next thing I have up here is I'm going to go into talking about the fertilizer. So the fertilizer requires industrial fertilizer. And industrial fertilizer can be used, or you can make it, like I said, with wheat and bone meal and string and sticks if you have lots of those items. But I never have enough string or bone meal to do that. So there's an alternative, and it requires livestock. So my livestock I'm using are cows. And in the middle of my cow pasture, I have this thing called a sewer. Get out of the way. Your sewer will collect sewage, so, you know, that's animal dookie, from your cows, and you can see that it is collecting it in a fairly large amounts at a time. I have an iron upgrade in here, so it's going to be sucking the poo from all of these cows. Delicious manure. And I have it immediately, so directly below there, I have a composter. And the composter, you can see, accepts the raw sewage. It's doing some work, and the composter is making industrial fertilizer. Now, it requires some energy to do so, but it makes it fairly quickly. You can ignore those. So the composter makes industrial fertilizer. I have my industrial fertilizer running down some BuildCraft pipes, and then it comes up, and with another insertion transport pipe, I start sending it into my fertilizer. So if I turn my fertilizer on, it will start doing its thing. You will see plants will start to grow fairly quickly, and then my harvester will eventually catch up to it, and it will start harvesting them. And this is a fairly decent way of making a lot of wheat in a fairly small space with reasonably limited resources. But this gives you a good indication that you can see how much slower this fertilizer fertilizes than the one over there. So it has to kind of think for a minute. It finishes a row and then sits there. And it works on a row and then sits there. And then the same with the harvester. It takes longer to get to everything. And the planter takes longer to plant things. Now, I think, as I said before, I really never use the fertilizer. Really, I just end up making myself larger farms, because with more farms, you're going to have more seeds, and you're going to have more production without having to waste the time to collect sewage and compost it and transport it and fertilize everything. It just saves energy. But this works very well if you don't want to waste a very large space to do so. So let's review. What did we talk about? We talked about the kind of the automated process of farming with Minefactory Reloaded. You want to get yourself some rubber trees, hold on to those saplings and plant them so you have lots of rubber to make all of these wonderful machines. You need to make sure that you have a planter. Your planter goes in the bottom half of your farm. Its base size is 3 by 3, but you can expand it using upgrades to, a giant farm. And I think that's something like radius of 11, radius of 12, so it's something like a 25 by 25 farm. Truly massive. Good luck collecting all the seeds for that. So your planter, your harvester will harvest ripe or mature fruits and vegetables. It will spit them out the back. I should also mention your harvester will harvest trees, and it harvests them very, very quickly, if you didn't quite catch that. And then we talked about the conveyor belt, the item router, and hopefully you found this tutorial to be quite useful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, give me a thumbs down. And please, if you're going to give me a thumbs down, tell me why, so I can make it better. Because that's really what I would do. I do this for you, not for me. So please let me know where I go wrong if I do. I hope that this was helpful, like I said. And until next time, have a great day, folks.